Hey folks, and welcome back to my new podcast series where I'll be interviewing various guests that I've crossed paths with over the years in the industry. On today's episode, I'm going to be interviewing my brother Steve, who has come all the way from Finland. I've worked with you a couple of times over the years in the industry, not specifically the film industry, actually more like the TV industry, because you gave me my first runner's job back in the day. It was probably 20 years ago or something like that. And obviously you've designed games in the past, and you're a public speaker on things like social media. So welcome to the second episode of the series, and yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for the invite. Pleasure to be here.
So you've lived in Finland now for 13 years. You've got a family there. You've kind of adapted to the culture there. Something I've always wanted to ask you is, how is the work-life balance different in Finland than it is here? Because I've always felt like London is just like really unhealthy in the way that you have to go all the way into London early in the morning, you get back really late, and there's just like there's no sort of balance. How does that differ in Finland?
When I lived in London, I didn't live too far away from the centre, but we're talking like half an hour on the train or 50 minutes walk like into central London, and I walked in every day or travelled in every day. You work from whatever time in the morning until 6, 7, like even later than that sometimes, So I've got experience in that kind of big city like lifestyle, which I think is probably still quite common now, except maybe people are not traveling in so often. So bear in mind, like when people talk about Finland, they don't necessarily always mean Helsinki, which is the capital, which is like a small city. But I live in the city, and so it's about as close as I could get living there to living in London. So I remember one time I hadn't visited for 4 years, and I came over to London, and I got onto the tube station, onto the escalator, and immediately I was annoyed by the person in front of me because they were standing on the wrong side or something like that, and I was it all flooded back. Oh my god, I'm so annoyed by this person, and they're mildly impacting my day, right? And I just remember, like, I used to be this annoyed all the time. Every day I was this annoyed all the time. So it's like always on top of your head, and I don't have that anymore. So it's like the difference in lifestyle. It isn't just like, oh, they start 1 hour earlier, or they leave 1 hour earlier from the office.
But they do.
They do, yeah. They do, yeah. They lunch really early, like 11 o'clock or something. But I feel like, I don't live very far away from the city centre in Helsinki. I feel like I live in the countryside. When I walk back from work, I walk up this hill, this grass hill, and there's like rabbits. There's rabbits running around. Sometimes I see a fox. There's birds. It's like I'm walking through the countryside, and then I arrive at my home, and it's 5 o'clock latest, And then I've got time to go to the swimming pool with my kids and do stuff before they have to go to sleep, cook some dinner and all these kind of things. And I can't really imagine having that kind of lifestyle in London.
Yeah. Maybe if you've got one child and you've got a lot of support, you can probably pull something like that off if you live, in the greater London, somewhere a little bit more green, possibly, but not with 3 kids. Yeah. And you would be coming home late every day. When
I moved to Helsinki, I had a job. Mm-hmm. So I essentially went from a 9 to 5 to a 9 to 5. And I stayed in the office every day. Every weekday, I stayed in the office till 5:30, because that was the kind of the earliest allowable moment you would leave the office in London. Actually, it was more like 6 o'clock.
I was about to say, that's early. Like 5:30.
Yeah, I remember at some point getting up at 6 o'clock. I had to go somewhere, and people just staring like, oh, he's leaving like on time. Technically it is on time, but
he must hate his job.
Yeah, maybe he's got a doctor's appointment.
Yeah.
And I stayed in the office till 5:30 every day, for a year, until one day someone just said to me, "What are you doing here? Like, you don't need to be here. Are you even doing anything? Just go home." And it was Friday, and people finish like early on Friday. They finish before 4 o'clock. Let's say 4 o'clock, right? And then I think very, very close to that time as well. It was one Friday. I said goodbye. There was the head of finance or something, someone quite senior in the company. They said, "Oh, so, have a nice weekend. Okay, bye." 3:30 or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there. A couple of hours later, I'm just, scrolling Facebook on not even on my mobile, because it's how long ago it was, but like on the desktop, scrolling Facebook, waiting for the time to pass. And I see a picture of him in his shorts and T-shirt in his like countryside cottage with his feet up having a beer. And I know that place is like 2 hours drive away. So he's left work, he's driven 2 hours to the countryside, and now he's chilling out, and here am I. I've wasted 2 hours of my life just sitting here. I don't need to.
I mean, you know this, but there is a stigma here. Even if you leave work at 5:30 on the dot, you become that person who refuses to stay at work for 1 minute after the time that you don't have to be. And it's like, that means you hate your job. If anything, it seems the opposite there. Like, if you're at work for longer than you need to be, something must be wrong, with you. Something must be wrong at home. Why are you here when you could be with your family?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a super good point. And I can't speak for every place because, I don't think every place will be like that. But every place I've worked, certainly the pressure is the other way. And actually at my current workplace, I'm like a member of this, this particular focus group, or I guess you would call it. And one of the principles that we have is this proactively looking out for people's welfare in the workplace. So if you're looking tired, and I see that you're looking tired, or I see that you're pulling overtime, I happen to notice, he didn't leave the office till 6 for 3 days this week, then we will, be taking steps to see maybe this person has too much work to do. Maybe they've got some other issues elsewhere in their life. Because at the end, you can try and squeeze that extra effort out of someone and they burn out, and then you've wasted all the investment you put into them.
Of course. You would have everyone in the whole office in that group, if you lived in London.
One of the things they talk about how it's like a fundamental important feature of Finnish culture is being close to nature. And I heard that and I was like, yeah, that's like one of those things that you say. But now I think I understand it. And it doesn't mean being close to nature necessarily, it's picnic weather, because that the weather there is quite often quite hostile. I don't know if you've ever had this feeling where you're on the way home, you've been caught in a storm, right? And it's lashing it down. Usually in England, it's the rain, right? And it's like you are literally fighting the elements to get home. And you get in and you're soaked and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just glad I made it home. I won. I battled the elements and I won. And you've got this, and I feel close to nature. Yeah. I feel like, sometimes the world is trying to kill me, but I won. Whereas in London, it felt like it was other people doing that. And like the system, the tube barriers, there's only one tube barrier open. There's a big queue. Everyone is backed up. Oh my God, I've got to get on the northern line because one of the other lines is closed. It's all like traps put in by somebody else rather than just against the force of natural
background. Compared to here, that sounds so adventurous. You're battling literally like snowstorms and ice and, like hills and stuff to get to work, to get back from work sometimes. And I think that's one of the biggest things people are missing here, is feeling that like connection with nature. It's rare to find a couple of trees near the workplace in London. So unless you live outside of London, but then you're commuting.
I know there are nice places. I'm not denying that. I mean, we grew up in a real nice leafy suburb of West London, right? But the bar has been set higher.
It has changed quite dramatically since the pandemic. It was as if people were scared to work from home before. Like employees would be, work from home? What? You can't do that. Now it's almost normal. If I say, oh yeah, I work remotely. Oh, cool. So do I. So does my wife. So, it's like you feel like there's not that stigma attached anymore. And so in some ways it's getting better.
It's a shame that it needed a worldwide pandemic to
shake things up.
Yeah. But regardless, it has shaken things up, and it has normalized those things, absolutely. That would be the first reaction. I remember specifically when an old colleague of mine, he mentioned to me, I was thinking maybe I could actually work from home a couple of days a week. And my initial reaction was, well, absolutely not. How can I know what you're doing? And I wasn't even really, it wasn't really even up to me. But they'll definitely say no to that. But why? Because we don't do it.
Yep.
But now everyone does it. There has to be kind of a good reason not to let someone do it. So that social pressure has worked in a good way.
One of the biggest issues I faced when it came to working remotely was when working with big clients like Netflix or Disney. They would hire me to come to their office in their edit suite where I have to turn my phone off and be in a dark room for however long until the edit's done, right? If it's a trailer or a promotional video. they would never send like footage like through the post to your house, you know, even if it's encrypted. And it's like, this changed everything because they had no choice. And as soon as they saw it was fine, and it was, if anything, it was quicker. So yeah, it did need a pandemic for that to happen. But now bigger companies can send work to your house. What would you say is something that you miss from being here?
One of the things that is difficult is that people in Finland, they don't want to hear negative feedback from foreigners. And I've lived there long enough to earn my right to criticize the place because I've got the dual perspectives, right? But they don't want to hear it. Mm-hmm. And so it's a little bit difficult to talk about except to other foreigners. So you end up in this like kind of group of like moaning expats or, you know, immigrants from whichever countries.
Yeah. Is there any examples? You don't have to be too specific, but you could give where that something like that has affected you.
Well, I mean, this is a generalization, but people in the UK, and especially me, I find moaning cathartic, right? I will moan about something, and at the end of that moan and that rant, whatever it happens to be, small things, and I will feel like energized afterwards. But I can see that when I moan with Finnish people, they are like looking drained and sad afterwards sometimes, and it doesn't have the same effect. That's like some part of the culture that isn't translated over there.
When you come to London, what's the first thing that I've got to do that?
Just being social and being able to talk. Of course, everyone speaks different language there. Mm-hmm. People do speak English, yeah, but you know the level of kind of human interaction you have during the day is a lot lower there. You can easily find yourself isolated and just not talking to people for days. If you were standing in a bus stop in the middle of nowhere with one other person, you just might not speak to them, and that'd be totally fine. The level of choice when it comes to any kind of retail here in the UK, and especially in London, is just obscene. There's a obscure Korean lager brand I'm after. Well, yeah, I know a place you can get that. You know, just go around the corner. There's a Korean beer place, and that's likely. But I'm used to their kind of, go to the shop. There's one kind of donut. Maybe there's two, because it's like a special time of year, and there's another flavour. For me now, it's normal. Like, I'm used to it, but then when I come here and I see everything again, I'm taking videos of the chocolate aisles and sending to my kids, and they're like, "Wow, there's so much chocolate." I'm
Get
like,
it all.
This is normal here.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about NFTs, just to rewind the clock back to like January, I think 2020. I remember being really interested in crypto art, right? That's what it was called. I don't know if it's still called that. And it is the idea of selling your artwork as a piece of digital artwork, and it be on this blockchain, and it was like something that someone else could own and sell, and you could make loads of money from it. And I remember you sending me links at the time of people who were selling their artwork for like $1 million or something, and I was just like, what is going on? And and we've obviously heard about things like Bored Apes and CryptoPunks, but I didn't even know what an NFT was, what it meant. And then somewhere along the line, you told me about this app called Vivi, and I didn't really know what it was. You just said, it's cool, it's got a couple of collectibles on there. I think there was like one available in this shop at the time, which was like the Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. And I bought it, and I think I bought a Batman as well. And somehow, somewhere along the line, I ended up buying 70 collectibles, and you ended up getting 200 plus VV collectibles. And so I just wanted to pick your brains on the subject of NFTs, why people are so scared of them, some people, and what it even means, because it means different things, right, to different people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what an interesting time, because back then it seems like such a long time ago. It means a wide range of things to different people. Like, some people will immediately think, like you mentioned, like Bored Ape, because that's what they've seen on the BBC or something like that. And some people will just think of like OpenSea, where people just selling things that aren't theirs, and this is a scam. This is a scam. Yeah. So it's like a very polarizing area right now.
Even I thought it was a bit scammy. When you mentioned about Top Shots,
yep,
I was like, well, okay, you buy this card or this, whatever it is, this video.
Yep.
And you buy it with your money. I don't even know if you could cash out at that time. So you put your money into this app. You can't get your money back out. you might spend, if you're buying it on a marketplace or whatever, you might spend like, I don't know, 20 pounds or euros or dollars or whatever on this thing that's just a video that you watch. Yep. And then 2 minutes later, you're sitting there thinking, what have I done?
I mean, the way the whole thing, the world of like NFTs is like, a lot of it is tied up with financial speculation, right? It's like, I'm going to buy this for 20, but it'll be worth 100. So I'm going to buy 10 of them and I'm going to buy them with the express purpose of trying to make more money. For me, it just made perfect sense.
Yeah.
And I still don't really understand why people have problems with this idea of owning something that's digital. Mm-hmm. And the arguments I hear against these kind of things, especially the people who can't get it and they're vehemently against it, mm-hmm. is it telling me technically why it doesn't, it's just it points to a link, mm-hmm. You don't even own an actual thing. You just own something that says you own something. You own a receipt. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, I get it. Like, I get these technical arguments. I don't care. Like, I don't care because that's not the thing that interests me about them. Without the annoyance of physical ownership, right? Every time you move house, I've moved my retro game consoles with me and it's been like, man, this is like burden. This is like a burden. And so to have these digital things, they don't weigh anything, So for me, the concept was really simple. And I'm not saying that the financial side of things didn't affect it to some degree, because that kind of made it alluring and exciting. This is like really early on. If we get it, like people will like that. And like it's like the kind of a chance to own these first edition things. It's the season 1 or series 1.
And I remember at the time I said, man, you mentioned about the Batman thing that was for sale on the app. And I was just like, if I buy this, am I just going to lose money? Mate, you could buy 10 of those and maybe in 2 years, 3 years, they'll be worth 100x, or 10x, or they'll be worth nothing, right? So I just took a chance and bought one of them, and that one ended up being worth like 20x or something by 1 year later. And then we were both saying, why didn't we buy like 20 of them?
I bought that Ghostbusters, and I agonized over it for like 3 days. I was like, $16.99. Like that is like, it's like 17 euros. Do I spend that on this nothing, on this like digital thing? Do I feel comfortable about that? And then eventually I got one, and then I saw the next day they were sold out. So I thought, it's this like hype cycle. If it's sold out, then I want it. Mm-hmm. If it's on the shelf, not sure if I really want it. So I've got my Ghostbusters thing. I bought it for $16.99. Well, the market says it's worth 300 or 600 or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter to me. Like as it starts moving into that bigger amount of money, you start thinking, wow, if this is real money, this is like actually becoming quite significant. So then it kind of moves it into a different story. But like, if they went to nothing, I don't know, it would be all right.
I'd be crying. I didn't collect them at the beginning because I thought they were really going to gain much value. It was a fun thing to do.
Right, yeah. And they were all cheap.
They weren't that expensive. Yeah. We should have bought more of them. Now, when you see a collectible go up to 10 grand, and then come all the way back down to 2K, for example, you don't feel good about it being 2K anymore. Yeah. You feel bad about it not being 10K, or like and so there is a part of me that feels like, where do you sell? When do you sell? Surely these will peak at some point, right. and then the whole market will crash. So there's this element of like, it is alluring because it's so much more profitable than the stock market. But where do you draw the line between holding the collectible and selling the collectible?
Yeah, and the individual choice is different for everyone. But you got to cash out where you feel comfortable, or like it's the burden of ownership of anything valuable. So if you had like, I had 2 pairs of these Nike Yeezys once upon a time. I queued up for them 4 a.m. I managed to get 2 pairs. I think 7 pairs came into the country in Finland. I had 2 of them. And at some point, we were renovating our flat. It was like, we need the money. Hey, these are worth like 1,000, So we sold them. But as they have become worth more, they're worth like 12,000 now. But, would I still have them now? Because that burden of ownership, every time they go up, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. I've got these 5,000 £5,000 shoes sitting in my wardrobe. Yeah. The kids could come and ruin them, or I might get tempted to wear them, or they could get stolen, or someone could spill water.
Varying factors that can come into that along the way. Right?
I kind of almost want to get them out of the house. So I've got that burden of owning this valuable thing off of me, and then go buy a pair of Jordans for a couple of hundred, and I feel comfortable at that level of ownership. So I think, well, if you bought something and it was a couple of hundred, and now it's worth 8,000, do you feel comfortable with that? If you don't, then get rid of it and buy another thing for 200 and that you like as well. The important thing is it's something you like.
you don't really know your relationship and with yourself and how you're going to react to seeing money go up and down like that, especially if you don't have it, much of it. You know, £12,000 might change someone's life.
True.
You know? So, I remember, I said to my partner at one point, because she bought two of the Disney Golden Moments. I said to her, when would you be comfortable selling one of these? Because she was adamant. She really wanted them. These were the collectibles she actually liked. I wouldn't sell it. I was like, okay, but is there a price that you would sell it for? At this point, they were like £200, £300. She had just picked it up on a drop for $60. And she said, and she had seen it go up, 600, come back down. 3,000, I suppose if it went to $3,000, after the fees, then I would probably sell it. I was like, okay, great. So she's got R2D2 and it went up to 3,000, to 4,000, to 5,000. But as she saw it going up, like the bar of where she would sell it completely changed, right? So it was like, well, I wouldn't sell it at 3,000 now. And then it went to 4, then it went to 5, and then it went to 10. And it's like, and now it's gone back down a bit. She wouldn't sell it, because she just thinks it's going to go up forever. So it's
and
like
it was worth 10,000.
Yeah.
So I can't sell it for 7.
It's like a peek into the future of like how much these collectibles could be worth. Right. If they could go up to 10,000, then why can't they go to 100,000? Like, this is how your mind reacts to it. So you end up holding it because you feel like the last thing you would want is to sell it for 10 and it will be worth 100, and then you just feel like you could have bought a house.
That's a real good point, because I think in the early Topshop days, we had these like legendary moments, Series 1 moments, super legendary. Like, some of these packs didn't even sell out, so they don't even have. They're supposed to be out of 100 or out of 50. They don't even have 50. There's only 23 of them or something. And people were selling them, and like they bought them for like whatever the retail price was, and managed to sell it for like twice as much. So they're happy. And one of my friends was saying, "Hey, look, this person sold this this LeBron James for 2,500, and look, it's really worth 12,500. He must feel like really bad." And I'm thinking, well, on the one hand, now it's worth that much. You might feel bad. If you'd have kept it, it might be worth more. But on the other hand, you bought something, maybe it's 25, maybe it's 250, and you 10x'd, and you made a profit, and you sold something, and you were really happy. What does it matter? What does it matter? It doesn't matter. And it's like, if you're gonna beholden yourself to this up and down and become a slave to the market, like what the market value is, then it's not going to necessarily be a comfortable ride for you.
I think it's a lot easier said than done. Like, I think that the burden is there, whether you want to believe it's there or not, right? I sold my Marvel #1 ultra rare comic for $200.
You feel bad now.
And I remember saying to you, I bought it for, what was it, 7 or whatever it was, or 12 or something. It was like a 10x or whatever, or 20x. I can't remember, like something like that. And you were like, mate, you've just 20x'd your original investment, right? That is amazing. You should be happy with that. Yeah, I should be happy. Yeah. And then the next day I saw it go up. Then the next day I saw it go up, and it went up to thousands. Yeah. And now all I'm thinking about is I've spent that $200 on some other crap, because everything went up, right? So everything was more expensive. And all I was thinking was, I could have like thousands in my, my wallet right now. Like, it's painful. It's painful. So like, yes, in some ways you don't want to be a slave to the, or like you don't want to feel burdened by this idea of like looking at it go up and down. And at the same time, you don't want to feel like you've got egg on your face, having sold something way under what it was, because you didn't educate yourself. So to round things up, what are your thoughts on NFTs? Are they a good thing? Are they screwing up the environment? What would you have to say to people who don't know much about NFTs and maybe are a bit wary of them?
Yeah, I think there's like a few problems here, like when you talk about these kind of things, right? Because someone levels the accusation at you, hey, what you're doing is environmentally unsound. In fact, it's very incredibly damaging. Then what's your comeback? You've either got to prove them wrong. You can't prove them wrong. What do? You say, you have to say, I don't care. If someone started saying that to you about your car, you drive a diesel car, what are you doing driving a diesel car in town? Like, what are you going to do? And people don't do that as vehemently, of course, because I need my car. I need my car to live. You don't need NFTs for anything, right? But I'm not necessarily really interested in those NFTs on the Ethereum blockchain. So I'm not interested in Bitcoin specifically, right? So the fact is there are, other NFTs, other blockchains, and like NBA Top Shot, it's on Flow. It's not okay. It's probably using a bit of electricity, but it's not like as catastrophic as.
All NFTs aren't created equal, though, right? I think sometimes people aren't they burned, and doesn't it like waste loads of electricity? And it's like, but then when you look at something like VV NFTs, they are supposed to be completely, environmentally friendly.
Yeah, they're supposed to be a carbon neutral blockchain, right? This, but they moved from they moved from GoChain to they're now like a layer 1, layer 2 compatible blockchain, Immutable X, right? So what is the environmental impact of that? I don't really know, to be honest. People pick their particular points of view, and then they really dig into it and get polarized, especially at the moment. And I try to think of it like, well, what if that wasn't an issue? Would you still have an issue with it? Yeah, I would have an issue with it because of this. And what if that wasn't an issue? Would you still have an issue with them? Yes, because it's a scam. So it's like, well, there isn't any answer to appease certain people who might be like just really against it for a multitude of reasons. As much as someone might be vehemently against NFTs, I'm not vehemently for them. I'm not like so into them. I'm defending them. It's just so it's a bit of a difficult one to sometimes talk about.
Do you think NFTs are something that are going to fizzle out and are going to be gone in the next few years? Do you think they're here to stay?
They'll wash away. They won't be valuable, and it'll just reduce the tide will swish it all away, and then people will just get stuff that they think is interesting. And what is interesting? What do people like? People have affiliations with different stuff, different brands, different things that they like, different countries, different activities and interests, and they use that to kind of represent themselves online. So I think that this whole financial speculation area of NFTs, I think that's going to fall down. The idea of digital collectibles will just become common and normal in the future, but it will be more like people just collect what they like.
It's been a pleasure having you here. I'm really happy that you're one of the guests. Hopefully we can have another talk at some point about this, if people find it interesting, I don't know. But mainly, thank you for coming down. Thank you for being a guest on the show. It's a shame we can't go on for longer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man, it's been fun.
Yeah, it has been my pleasure. It's nice to just have have a one-on-one like this, and the time has gone very quickly. So thank you.